See how fast you can smash that like button, click subscribe and the notification bell. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. I don't want to be that YouTuber. Hey guys, my name is Kylie. Welcome to the channel. I'm sorry if that intro was super chaotic, but yeah, today I am ranking the Saw franchise. Oh, also, sorry, I have one more intro joke to make. How many subs you got? 4,000. What? Yeah. Oh my god. Thank you to everyone, whether you're a day one or you're a new subscriber. Thank you so much for getting me to 4,000 subscribers. I think I'm gonna be celebrating with a Q&A, so definitely stay posted for that. But moving on to the topic of today's video, so I'm gonna be ranking the Saw franchise. I just watched the entire franchise for the first time. I watched the first movie, I think when I was 16 years old, and then I didn't watch the rest of them until literally a couple of weeks ago, which by the way, if you want to see some reactions, those will be on my Patreon, which will be linked down below. But anyways, yeah, so I just watched all of these for the first time basically, and a lot of them have somewhat started to blur together in my mind because I watched them all back to back. But nonetheless, I feel like I have a fairly decent grasp on the franchise. This ranking will probably change over time, you know, after the next time that I watch the franchise, we'll see. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna do my best not to give spoilers for Spiral in this video, but as for the first 8 movies, I'm probably gonna get into spoilers just because all of these movies in this franchise are so married to one another, they're so intertwined, so I just think it would be really hard to avoid spoilers for this franchise ranking. With my Scream franchise ranking, and I think for like my Halloween one, my Child's Play one, all my other rankings I'm pretty sure are spoiler free. This one will not be, but I'm gonna try my best not to spoil Spiral. So I just had to get some disclaimers out of the way, but let's just kick off my ranking. Okay, so to be honest, 8 and 9 are a little bit interchangeable for me. Both of these movies in the bottom, honestly, the bottom 3 movies are all very bad. I'm not really a fan of any of them, but the bottom 2 are just by far the worst out of the entire franchise. But I decided at number 9 to put Spiral. Yes. I think I honestly just put it lower because story-wise, it just has a lot more filler, and technically wise, it's much more poorly made. I did an entire review though. I did a spoiler-free section, I did a plot breakdown, the whole 9 yards. So I'll link that down below if that's something you're interested in watching. But yeah, I was so incredibly disappointed by Spiral, and it's not to say that I wasn't disappointed by my number 8 pick either, because I was massively. They're both really bad, but honestly Spiral is just a little bit worse, and I'll get into that right now, because my number 8 pick would have to go to Jigsaw. The reason why Jigsaw makes it higher up on the list is because honestly, at least the twist wasn't super predictable. With Spiral, I guessed who the killer was like 30 minutes before it happened. Although the twist, while it did shock me and I did more or less enjoy it, it honestly didn't really make any sense in Jigsaw. Like the killer made sense to me, but the fact that this was taking place 10 years after John Kramer had performed this obscure trap that we somehow never knew about, that was just, I don't know, that felt really contrived. That didn't really make sense to me, especially because during the scenes with John Kramer, one of the victims is like, how are you still alive? Just leading us to believe that this was taking place in present day and whatever. And so kind of the twist just, I liked it only because it successfully shocked me, but did it really make sense? No. And it honestly was kind of tough to place Jigsaw at number 8 because it literally took me 2 days to watch Jigsaw. I was hating it so much. I was so bored by it. I was not compelled by the story really at all. It was so bland and so lame in comparison to the rest of the Saw franchise. So I was really having a lot of trouble getting through it. I ended up finishing it the next day, and I was a lot more pleased with the second half of the movie than the first half of the movie. But honestly, I'm not sure if I'll ever even rewatch Jigsaw because it doesn't even really fit into the franchise. It's not really necessary, but we'll see. Oh my god, I just realized something. I'll tell you in a second. My number 7 is Saw 7, and this movie can just literally fuck off. But what I just realized is 7, 8, and 9 on my list are respectively Saw 7, Jigsaw, and Spiral. So 7, 8, and 9. Did not do that on purpose. That's a shame. That's really a crying shame that they have just progressively gotten worse, the last 3 that have come out. But anyways, yeah, like I said, Saw 7 can fuck off. The twist with Dr. Gordon was so unbelievably contrived. So many plot points of the movie were very disjointed and had nothing to do with each other. The character of Dr. Gordon just never in a million years would he be an accomplice to Jigsaw. There's just no way. We saw what happened to his family in the first film, and something like that, I believe, is not forgivable. He also lost a whole ass foot. So I feel like that's a little bit different to Amanda, who her trap, it didn't really permanently maim her in too crazy of a way. I think she had like scars on her mouth, right? She kind of looked a little bit like the Joker. But now that I'm thinking back, were those scars consistent? Did she have them in the rest of the movies? I cannot remember. That's a little bit different to having to saw off your own foot. I don't really think that's forgivable. I don't think that would make someone want to pick up the work of the person that made them do that to themselves. It's just like so contrived. But here's the thing, here's why this movie didn't make it lower on my list, because yeah, it was really bad. It was so stupidly contrived, but because it was supposed to be the last chapter of the franchise, they had to make the craziest twist possible. And so I basically understand why they chose to make Dr. Gordon the last accomplice. I don't think that there was a crazier twist for them to write. Like, I understand the choice. It's a stupid choice, but I do understand it. But still, at the end of the day, making Dr. Gordon the last disciple or what have you, that just created chaos. That was not appreciated by me. And like I said, yeah, bringing back the OG character was probably the craziest and best thing they could come up with, even if it didn't make any sense for the character, so they were kind of in a bind, but whatever. Maybe you should have just stopped at Saw VI. I don't know. Okay, here is where I know that a lot of our opinions are definitely about to diverge. Coming in at number 6. Saw 3 can go to hell. Are you about to click the dislike button? Honestly, it's fine, whatever. I know you want to, go ahead. I know that this is a favorite of the franchise, and I feel like maybe upon a rewatch, I'll like it more the second time. I know that everybody loves it, but I find it to be so boring, especially in comparison with the first 2 movies. It was just such a letdown to me. I think it's really just because I hate the victims of the traps, and the traps are not really as unique to me. But the victims of the traps, so there's this ER doctor and her husband, and they're obviously, you know, grieving the loss of their child, but it makes them act out in really terrible ways. Like, they establish right off the bat that our main character is an ER doctor that doesn't have much regard for treating her patients in a timely manner. And to me, it does not matter what you've been through. That is a type of way that you can't act out. When people's literal lives are in your hands, you don't get a grief pass. I'm sorry. So because of that, for the whole movie, I was not rooting for her. I just thought that she was a bad person. And same with her husband. He was not likable at all. So that was something that I couldn't really get past. And then another aspect of this movie is the fact that Amanda had so much screen time, and I hate her. And it's a shame because I really liked her character in the first 2 movies, and I love the twists that we go on with her. I think her story is phenomenal. I just hate her. Like, whenever she's on screen and she's losing her shit and whatever, I'm like, okay, next, please. I can't deal with you. Can't stand the character. Anyways, those are basically the biggest downfalls, I think, of Saw 3 for me, and it just makes it one of the least enjoyable of the franchise. I think it was just such an insane step down from the first 2 movies, and so maybe if I kind of remove that lens from my perspective, I would like the movie more. I don't know. I'll try it again someday. Up next at number 5 would have to go to Saw 4, which is one that I'm pretty sure is one of the least liked in the franchise. But I put this one here because I think that the traps are really cool. Honestly, Saw 4 kind of just feels like the epitome of a classic Saw movie, if you will. But in my opinion, there's nothing that's glaringly bad about the movie, but there's nothing that's glaringly good really either, besides the fact that I really enjoyed the traps. I think that the lead was kind of a strange choice just because his character had no involvement with the rest of the franchise at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, he was not in the first 3 movies, right? And then he wasn't in any of the rest of the movies either. So Saw 4 does feel kind of random, but I do really love the backstory that we get about John Kramer's wife and their family, and also Hoffman. I like Hoffman. But to conclude my thoughts on Saw 4, it's literally just very middle of the road for me. That's why it is literally in the middle of my list. Moving on to my number 4, and that would have to go to Saw 5. Yeah, it's the one that everyone hates. Whatever. I really enjoy the storyline with the trap, the storyline with all the victims. I think the way that it's all interconnected is very fascinating. I also think that the twist pertaining to the trap is particularly interesting. The fact that the reveal was more or less that these people, if they had all just worked together, they all could have survived. I thought that was super interesting. It was a super unique and fresh take for the franchise. Like, they did something new that really interested me. Plus, I love the dichotomy between Hoffman and Strom. Yes, the men look damn near exactly the same, but both of them could get it any day. Particularly Strom, though. Oh my god, he is the man. I love him so much because he was Luke in Gilmore Girls, and I loved that show when I was little. And I was so surprised he was in this franchise. I genuinely had no idea that he starred in these movies. So naturally, that being said, the ending of this movie was extremely upsetting to me, but I really enjoyed the rivalry between him and Hoffman. I also love Hoffman in this movie. I like him less and less as the movies keep going. I thought this should have been maybe his last movie, but the way they demonstrated his abilities in this movie and the way he tricked Strom and the whole ending, yes, upsetting, but still I was like, oh, wow. My friend Tiago described Hoffman as a proper villain, and I would completely agree. He does start to kind of go off the rails, and I start to really not like him in the later movies, but in this movie, I thought he was a star. I really liked him. So yeah, I really liked Saw V. I'm not totally sure why it's so hated in the franchise, but anyways, I'm gonna move on to one that I hope that we can all agree deserves to be in the top 3, and that would be Saw II. I think that this is a fantastic sequel to an amazing first classic movie. The reason why it didn't make number 1 or 2 though is because the main character can choke. I'm really not a fan of that cop, and honestly, like, it really does make sense for the story, and a lot of times the victims are not meant to be likable people, and so that's kind of the whole point. So the movie still does absolutely get a pass from me for that reason. It just kind of makes the beginning of this movie not super likable for me. I remember feeling super let down, you know, just having rewatched the original Saw movie, and that movie is so incredible. And then I would say like the first 20 or so minutes of this movie kind of just were a bit of a letdown. That initial trap when they're all just kind of stuck in that room and they're trying to find a key or whatever to get out, I thought that was a little bit bland. Definitely very reminiscent of the first one, but I was like, maybe do something different. Plus our lead character, this cop, he was super unlikable, just like not a great guy, not worth rooting for. But then, you know, the only reason worth rooting for him really is because of his son. He has to save his son. And so the movie does get really interesting. It gets very stressful, very compelling. I love the drama between the victims and how they all kind of start to turn on each other. And then the twist at the end almost surprised me just as much as the twist at the end of the first Saw movie. Maybe not quite to the same degree, but it's up there with one of the best twists of the franchise. I think it's so crazy that all along Jigsaw's whole message was just kind of a play on words. He was like, if you sit across from me and talk to me for an hour, your son will be delivered in a safe and secure location. And he was literally in a safe, and that's exactly what Jigsaw said. That blew my mind. I thought that was incredible. And this was also the first time where they kind of played around with time. They obviously tried to copy that concept with Jigsaw, but in my opinion, they didn't really do that successfully. With this movie, it actually made a ton of sense, and I really liked it. And now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like Jigsaw was also kind of just like a compilation of all of the best moments of Saw kind of lumped together, but done in a worse way. Anyways, I am gonna move on to my top 2, and my top 2 favorite movies of the franchise are actually interchangeable, so buckle up. I cannot decide whether or not I love the original Saw or Saw VI better. I think it's fairly obvious that Saw is probably the more well-made film. I think it is the better movie, but I enjoy both of these movies almost equally. The stories are insanely strong for both. I think the writing is excellent in both of these movies. I think the social commentary in Saw VI is particularly strong because they are making note of kind of all the injustices of the medical insurance industry. And then of course there's the twist in the original, which, like, come on. But also the twist in 6 is like, come on. One reason why I start to lean slightly more towards liking 6 better is because I think the traps are indisputably better. And I also love that it brings in these really awful moral choices for the characters. They do that somewhat in the original Saw because both characters end up withholding information from one another, and that kind of creates drama there. But with Saw VI, this man that is like our lead in the trap, if you will, he is forced in multiple situations to kill off several of his colleagues. Another movie that brings in questions of morality and making difficult choices like that is The Belko Experiment. That's definitely worth a one-time watch. It just brings these characters into these really insane circumstances of choice, and I really like it because I think that unanswerable questions of morality are super interesting, and they brought that into play a lot with Saw VI. So yeah, I really don't know. The first time that I watched Saw, I think I was about 16 years old, old, and the ending, obviously I was stupid shocked, but I was also stupid shocked by the ending of Saw VI, because the whole time you think this scummy insurance guy is fighting his way through the traps because he's trying to save his family, so it kind of starts to give him somewhat of a redemption arc. And the fact that he was willing to help one of his employees through the trap and he was getting burned with boiling hot steam and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I mean, this guy's not a total piece of shit. But then that wasn't his family. Also, what's up, Roderick? But at the end of the day, this scummy insurance guy was never really in control of the trap, and it was always up to this family whether he would live or die. At the end of the day, none of the choices that he really made had much impact on his own destiny, which I thought was really interesting. That was also kind of a fresh and unique take with the Saw franchise, which they kind of did this with Spiral, but like in Spiral, the people didn't really have much of an option of getting out of the traps, and so the trap scenes ended up just being death scenes. So Spiral did that in a bad way. I think Saw VI did that in an amazing way, where the person in the trap didn't necessarily have control of the situation. I think the reason why it was so successful in Saw VI is because the whole time you pretty much do think that he is in control and he has a chance to save his family, but then it wasn't his family. Oh, such a great twist. But then with the original Saw, it's just so iconic and I think so much more understated. Saw VI is definitely guilty kind of the whole bad rep that this franchise gets for being too revolved around the torture porn stuff, and not being super big on body horror myself. I do kind of prefer that about the original Saw, but because the story is so strong, the traps are so strong and so interesting in Saw VI, I do kind of give it a pass for that. So both of these movies honestly are tied. They're both kind of at number one, but for different reasons. So yeah, if that's an unsatisfying end to this list, I'm very sorry, but just speaking my truth as always. If you'd like to hear a more in-depth review of Saw, I actually have a whole review written out, but then I didn't end up doing my Saw series like I was planning to, so I never filmed that video. If you would like a full, like, deep analysis of the original Saw movie, let me know and I'll do that. If you're new to my channel, the series that I typically do revolve around big franchises in horror. So I did Halloween, I did Child's Play, I did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I did Scream, I did, I'm doing Harry Potter right now. I did Friday the 13th way back in the day. That was like a year ago at this point when I had just started my channel. So it's a little bit embarrassing, but like we all start somewhere, you know? So I was gonna do a Saw series, but then I didn't end up having time because I am currently directing my own short film that I wrote. It's just been taking up a lot of my time, but it's been going beautifully and I'm really excited for you guys to see it. So yeah, I'm still not sure if I would have time to do an entire Saw series right now, but if you would like me to review at least the first movie, that's something that I'm willing to do, especially because I have the whole thing written out. It would be kind of a waste if I didn't make that review, but I don't know if there's much of a demand for that right now, so just let me know down below. So if you're interested to see that, if you're interested to see my Q&A for hitting 4,000 subscribers, definitely hit the notification bell because YouTube is really weird about notifying people when I post. I mean, it's not just me, just like in general, YouTube is bad at notifying people when people post videos. So yeah, if you haven't done so, definitely click subscribe, click the notification bell, click the like button. It really helps my channel out. If you'd like more content from me, more non-horror related content, you can also check out my vlog channel. That'll be linked down below. If you'd like to see some behind the scenes stuff of my short film, definitely follow me on social media. I have TikTok, I have Letterboxd, I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I have all that stuff linked down below. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye!